Okay, so I was going to look at a couple questions from the review, 6 and 10. So let's look at 6 first. And so see, arc sine is basically asking you to find the inverse of sine, but the difference is we're actually talking about a graph, though, of it, the actual inverse graph. And so whenever you do that, you have limitations. And what that is that whenever you graph it, it's going to have to be 1-to-1, which means it has to pass the vertical line test, but it also has to pass a horizontal line test also, where it can't touch it more than one spot. And so looking at the sine graph, and you could pick different sections, but the most obvious section to pick would be from negative pi over 2 to positive pi over 2. There you can see that no x or y value is repeated. And so see, if I were to continue on, what would happen is I'd have y values that would repeat as I go down this dashed part right there. And the problem is the inverse function, all you do is just swap the x's and y's. And so in order to be a function, when you swap them, it still has to be past the vertical line test, and it would not do that if it were not 1-to-1. So here is the sine graph. Here is the inverse of sine, or arc sine. And so right here they ask us, okay, what is the arc sine of negative 0.7685? And so you have to put that in your calculator to figure that out. But basically they're asking you at what degree mark are you going to get that. And so we got negative 50.2, which would be within the restricted domain right there. So it's basically between negative 90 and positive 90 degrees. And so that we're good to go on that one. Okay, let's look at number 10. I think that was the one you were more concerned about. So on this one, I have a picture of the graph down here. And so this is a picture of the inverse of cotangent. And so that you can see that the limitations uh, for your angle is going to be between, it looks like 0 and pi. It looks like 0 and pi, or basically it's going to be between 0 and 180 degrees. And so what happens here is, because we're doing the arc cotangent, you're going to have to go ahead and do the inverse of the reciprocal of tangent. And so when you figure that out, you end up with a negative angle. And so that's not within the restricted values right here. And so that's why we had to add 180 to that particular one to get it within the parameters of 0 to 180. So I know it can be a little confusing. Basically, inverse and arc are the same, just that it restricts your possible values. And so that's why you're having to add 180 on this particular example. Okay, I hope that helps. Feel free to send more questions.